As promised in Part 1, Part 2 of our content this week will focus exclusively on the responsorial psalm. We will examine what the psalm is, along with its role within the liturgy of the Word, and we'll discuss best practice techniques for selecting a psalm setting for your faith community. The responsorial psalm immediately follows the first reading and occurs in every liturgical celebration. The Church assigns a responsorial psalm to every Mass within the 3-year lectionary cycle, be it a daily Mass celebration or a Sunday gathering. The responsorial psalm is more often than not derived from the Book of Psalms, but as mentioned in Part 1, may come from another Old Testament text as well. According to the Germ, the Psalms are not readings or prose prayers, but poems of praise. These poems express pain and hope, unhappiness and trust, but above all, faith in God. Thus, the Psalter, or a collection of psalms, often with musical settings, serves as the prayer book of God's people from age to age. The practice of a responsorial psalm is historically based within Jewish tradition. Within the Jewish liturgy, the community would offer a response after the hearing of sacred scripture. For us Catholics, this practice helps us to encounter the other readings in a distinctive way. First, they can provide a bridge between the thematic content of the first reading and that of the second reading or the Gospel. Second, the responsorial psalm can offer a helpful synthesis of what is being encountered throughout the entire liturgy of the Word. For example, the Psalms during Holy Week are starkly different depending on the celebration. On Palm Sunday of the Lord's Passion, the psalmist and assembly proclaim Psalm 22, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Whereas on Easter Sunday, Psalm 118 is joyfully declared, "This is the day the Lord has made, let us rejoice and be glad in it." Most importantly, however, and perhaps what's significantly overwhelming about the Psalms, is that these are prayers Jesus would have known and would have prayed often as a devout Jew. So each time we sing a psalm together, we join our voices with our ancestors and in fact with Jesus himself in praise of God. From a musical perspective, the responsorial psalm is intended to be a dialogue between psalmist and assembly, with, as always, participation as the driving force. In this, the psalmist is more than simply a singer, but instead is the prayer leader who invites the community to join in the prayer of Christ. In order to do this, the psalmist must be familiar with the text and the musical setting, and allow themselves to surrender to the text, so that the sacred scripture may be proclaimed through the singing of the psalm. At this point, you've heard me mention the phrase psalm setting a few times. The setting of the psalm is the way in which the text is set to music. As with other liturgical music, this can run the spectrum from polyphonic expression with or without organ accompaniment to settings for contemporary rock praise teams. What is important is using psalmody that allows your community to fully and actively encounter and participate with and through the text allocated for each celebration. Specifically, however, I'd like to mention 2 different styles of verse settings for psalms that you may encounter regularly. The first are those settings that are metrically composed. For these psalms, the composer has taken the text and structured it within rhythmic and melodic patterns. The second is similar to recitative found within operas. Here the accompanist or choir simply expresses a chord or a pitch, and the psalmist chants the words until a pitch change. Here the composer indicates textual importance and stress through the melodic change of the chant. Before concluding, I'd like to mention Sunday psalms and common psalms. The psalters that I mentioned a few minutes ago often contain psalm settings for every Sunday in the 3-year lectionary cycle. Often responsorial psalms for solemnities and feast days may also be included in these collections. With these resources available, I think it is important for your congregations to be exposed to the psalms assigned for each Sunday, due to the reasons explained and expressed in Slide 2. Therefore, every effort should be taken to find or create a setting for each Sunday's celebration. Many psalms for daily masses, however, are not set to music. In these instances, it is appropriate to sing the common psalm for the liturgical season. A list of these psalms is included in the resource section of our site for your reference and use. Our Week 3 content concludes in Part 3 with discussion on the Gospel Acclamation, the Universal Prayer, and an introduction to enacting the rite. Thanks for listening.